Welcome to Search for Truth. My name is Walter Noasad. Welcome to my house. This is it. Come on in, be cool. You know what the party rules are. Be nice or I'm going to kick you out the door, right? Some of you already know that. The rest of you, I love you. Thank you so much for all the comments. You know me, I'm pretty responsive in getting back to you right away. Really appreciate that. I really appreciate all the new subscribers and everybody who's bothered to post a comment and share it out there on social media. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you all the new people for joining and subscribing to my channel. What I have for you today is an interview from February of 2012 with Colonel Billie Woodard, United States Air Force retired, who claims to be from Hollow Earth, worked with the Air Force at Area 51 underground, interfaced with the underground beings, and a whole lot more. Just you wait and see. Now, before we dive into the interview, I do want to share, as wild as all this stuff sounds, I do want to share some things for you to kind of noodle on as you listen to this, because if you don't know this, the rest of what he says here may or may not fall within the realm of your reality. I'm not sure it does with mine, but just the same, I'm going to share this with you just so you know. When you look at this video, when Billie first comes on, you're going to see him wearing this headband. It's made of copper. Behind that copper is a bit of leather to kind of soften. You don't want the metal right against the skin, so that's the padding. And on the front, you can't see it very well in the video, but on the front there's a gold coin and a crystal, a quartz crystal in front of that. So here's this guy, he's wearing this when he picks me up at the airport. And I thought that was a little unusual. Picks me at the airport, we go to the hotel, I check in my room, we go and we have some dinner. And he says, here, you want to try this? Okay, I'm going to try on this crown that I think's looking kind of funky. So the first thing I do is I'm looking around who all's here. We were the only ones in the restaurant. A blizzard had blown in right after I landed, so that was kind of fortunate for my own ego. So I said, sure, why not? So I put this thing on, and all that nonsense about being self-conscious and worried about what I must look like with this goofy metal band with a crystal and a gold coin wrapped to my head, what that must look like, that faded away in about 10 seconds because there was this welling up of warmth and blissful energy that kind of overcame me, and all I could do is look at Billie and go, you realize, don't you, you're not getting this back. I'm taking this home. So that was completely unexpected. I didn't know what to expect. Hey, join the tribe, put on the crown, have a laugh. I didn't expect to get any kind of energy charge out of it, and I did. So it was pretty amazing. There was a second amazing thing that he demonstrated to me that I just I can't explain. I don't understand it, but it happened. One of the other odd things that he did while we're there at dinner is he asked me, he said, do you like beer? Well, yeah, I like beer. I used to drink a lot of it when I was in the Army. These days, I tend to limit myself to 1 pint a month, and that's about, as much as I care to drink because I don't like being out of control. I just like the flavor of beer. He says, well, order one. So I did. I ordered a Newcastle brown ale, which I really liked the flavor of, and dutifully the waiter delivered that, and I looked at Billie, okay, what next? He goes, taste it. Okay. It's like, well, I'm like, it tastes like ale. Of course it tastes like ale. He says, okay. The next thing he does is he creates this thing with his hand. He creates like a vortex, and he's just got like his fingers together like this, his middle finger and his index finger touching his thumb like that, and then the index finger and the ring finger and the pinky kind of going out, creating what he calls a vortex. And his wrist was kind of bent like that, and then he put that on one side of the glass, and he put his palm on the other, and he just sat there for maybe 20 seconds. So okay, now taste it. Okay. So I tasted it, and I drank it some more, and I downed that whole pint. It tasted like Newcastle flavored water. If I down a pint of ale, I'm going to get a little tipsy, and I didn't. And that was most unusual and also unexpected. The guy ruined my beer. Okay, he ruined my beer buzz. Anyhow, that's two things: the goofy crown and the funky hand thing and the Newcastle flavored water. Very strange indeed. I have no explanation for it other than what he says. He says we all have this capability and this power of telling our food what our body needs. And just by doing this, and he was there for like 20 seconds, the food tastes better, the drink tastes better, your body receives what it needs. That's his claim. Anyhow, let me tell you what else you're going to see in this. This video is also a recovery from a hard drive crash. I lost all the original footage of this interview, and the only thing that had survived was a test DVD I was playing with on editing. So you're going to get, it's not as clear as it can be. Like the Bob Dean video I created, same thing. You're going to have that funky information up here in the corner, and as Billie kind of leans into it, there's a mask that's kind of have part of his head disappear, his hands disappear behind this mask, because there's just a lot of useless text that's on the screen. And then I've gone ahead on this one and have just left the time code down here. It doesn't matter. And there's another little funky thing that happens on the 5th chunk of the segment. It goes from like letterbox down to standard def. I don't know why, but then it jumps back again in later segments. So that's all the hankiness that's going to happen with it. Just the same, you can hear it perfectly well. You can see the guy fine. It works. This video is going to cover all kinds of weird ground. This will be part 1 of maybe a 2 or 3 part video, because it's like I have about 3 hours of footage. So this will be like the first hour or so of that interview, and he covers a lot of ground. I mean, he brings in J. Allen Hynek. That's part of his life. He had encounters with that guy. Going on a flying saucer. Being taken to Hollow Earth, living there for 6 months, being, encountering all these various beings and mantis beings and other things while he was in Hollow Earth, and becoming an officer, going into the military, commanding Area 51, level 9 or some such thing. Anyhow, there's a lot of stuff in here. Have your discernment button at the ready. Just the same, think about some of the stuff I've talked about. I think that we have probably a combination of truth and maybe a little bit of embellishment, because I just think everybody embellishes stories, and this may definitely be one of those cases. There'll be one point in part 1 here where he asks me if I want to talk to his father. Just so you know, his father, he trans channels his father. So it's a situation where he goes into a trance, and then his father comes in, and then when you're talking to him, it's like you're talking to his father. You won't see that in this first part, but in the parts following this one, you will see that. I just want to kind of clear up something that you'll see later on in the videos when he talks about, oh, you want to talk to my father? No, I don't want to talk to your father. I want to get to the root of the story. But he does come in a little later on, and that's also an interesting discernment opportunity for all of us. Anyhow, I've rattled on here long enough. I just want to add one more thing. Thank you once again, everybody, for subscribing to my channel in the last month or so. I really appreciate it. And if you have the wherewithal, hit that contribute button. Send a few greenbacks this way. I really appreciate it. Share it on social media. Like it. Hit the like button. Post a comment, and I'll respond back to you. Just be cool about it, all right? Okay, it's my house. You come to my house, you want to party, you better be nice. Anyhow, that's it. That's all I got. And, enjoy the video. Could you give us your name?
Yes, it's Billie Woodard.
Have you ever worked for a government agency?
I've ever worked for a government agency besides the Air Force?
Besides the Air Force?
No.
What did you do for the Air Force?
What did I do for the Air Force? Well, I worked at Area 51.
What did you do at Area 51?
I read a lot of reports.
So you're saying they brought you in and set you down at a desk and had you just read reports?
Yes, lots of them.
To what end?
Well, they wanted my comments on them, on some of them. They wanted to know basically what my take on it was. Several reports that I read were mediocre. The ones that piqued my interest were ones about Admiral Byrd and things of that nature.
So can you tell us about some of the reports that you read on Admiral Byrd?
I read his original diary, the one that the true diary, not the one floating around the internet.
Was this original copy of the diary?
The original copy.
What did it look like?
What did it look like? It was in the form of a flight log.
So his diary was written into his flight log.
Yes,
As a
it
pilot,
was.
he would keep a log.
Yes, he would.
Let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
Because you didn't just happen into a job at Area 51. There's a bit of history behind there, isn't there?
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of history behind that. Well, when I was at the age of 12, I had an incident occur about when I was in the Scouts, and it had to do with being picked up by a saucer or UFO, if you want to call it that. And it was quite an interesting event.
You want to tell us a little bit about what happened?
I can tell you the whole thing if you want.
Sure, let's go. Let's go.
Well, me and my friend were on our way back from the scout meeting, and we got to the edge of the cornfield that goes for about a mile before you get to the house, and then there's a road that goes around it. And I told my friend, I said, well, I'm going to take a shortcut through the cornfield because it's shorter. He said, well, I'm going to keep going around the road because, you know, the corn stalks look like they're going to reach down and grab you. So he's kind of finicky about not wanting to do that. So I said, fine. I parted with him. He went on around the road, and I went through the cornfield. Halfway through the cornfield, I looked up and I saw what looked like a star, but it got brighter, and it got brighter, and it got brighter. And then the next thing I realized was the entire area I was standing in was lit up just like daylight. You could, so bright, you could actually see the kernels on the corn. That's pretty bright. I looked up and into this light, and I heard a voice come from it. It says, Billy, we are here to take you on a journey if you would like to go. And I said, yes. Without hesitation, I said, sure, let's go. Next thing I know, I'm looking down, and the ground's going further away, and I'm getting lifted up into this craft. And so next thing I know, I'm inside this craft. And they asked me, what do I see? I said, all I see is bright light. And they toned it down to where I could see my surroundings. And everything was in a circular pattern around inside this vessel. And the people were extremely tall. By standards for a child, extremely tall can be anywhere from 6 feet on up. But these people were way up there.
What did they look like?
Like you or me, except very tall in stature. The female was somewhere between, I would say, between 10 to 12 feet. And the man was taller than that. And they spoke very gently, and they said, all right, how good are you in geography? And I said, straight A student. And they said, we'd like you to tell us where we are as we go over the different states. And the one we left from was Texas, Wichita Falls, Texas. So that's fine. We started going over the different different states, different flags, and I recognized the flags as we went over them. And I started naming them off. And we got up to Canada and the Canadian flag, and they said, where are we now? And I said, I don't know, we're over ice and snow. And they said, yes, we're above Canada's. We're in the Arctic Circle.
You said flags. You could see the flags?
Yes. Through the bottom of the craft, you could look down through the craft, which was transparent, and you could see passing over these cities. And it was quite interesting.
Now, before we continue on the story, I want to go back to the cornfield for a second.
Okay.
What time of year was it? Was it
Fall.
fall? Okay.
Yeah.
And as you were being brought up into the craft, what was that sensation like?
Like a lifting, just suddenly weightless. It's like the gravity around my body was defied, and I was pulled into the craft.
And were you pulled in from the bottom, from the side?
From the bottom.
From the bottom.
Yeah.
Were there doors?
Didn't seem like no doors. It looked like I was going right into a solid bottom, but I went right through it.
Interesting. And then you mentioned the light. Is that what you came into, was solid light?
Yes.
The bright white light, they asked you?
What did I see? And I said, nothing but bright light.
And then they toned it down. Okay, thank you.
And then they turned it down.
Okay. So the flags that you saw as you were flying over the States, what was your altitude?
Very low.
So you weren't that high at all?
No, we weren't high at all.
Was this daytime?
It was nighttime.
At the night.
It was night.
So where were these flags?
They were, well, on the buildings that we passed over. We passed over from Texas, passed over through Oklahoma, the Oklahoma flag, and then they went up from there to the state above Oklahoma. I have to have a map to tell you which ones they are.
Okay. So do you recall any landmarks?
Landmarks, yeah, the buildings were more like the capitals.
Okay, so you're flying over the capitals then?
Mm-hmm.
So you're on the craft and you're heading
Yes.
out over Canada.
Right.
What happened next?
Northeast over we went over like Baffin Bay and Canada. So we were by that time I'm totally lost. I don't know where we are. And they said, "Do you see the glow ahead of us?" And I said, "Yes, I do." "What is that?" And they said, "That's the entrance to Hollow Earth." I said, "Hollow Earth?" I said, "Wait a minute. We're taught in school that the Earth is solid and it has a molten core and all this. And now you're telling me it's hollow?" And they said, "Yes, it is hollow." And they said, "What you learn is a shame because it's all a lie." And I said, "Okay. How long are we going to be gone on this trip?" And it says, "You're going to be gone for 6 Earth months." And I said, 6 months? I'll be grounded for life. That was my thought, And they said, "No, you won't be grounded for life." This says you'll be missed, yes, but when you return, your body will be replenished and all the childhood diseases or sicknesses that you were experiencing will be gone.
What sicknesses were you experiencing at the time?
Well, like the mumps, the measles, and stuff like this. But at the time, they said that your immune system is starting to break down and must be replenished.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons for the going for the trip.
So you didn't have the mumps and the measles and all this stuff at the
No.
same time at that moment?
No.
It's just that what they're telling you...
It was a fortification against it.
Okay.
And they fortified my body. They gave me a liquid to drink, which tasted like grape juice, but it's very sweet. And I drank it, and it tasted extremely well, and it energized my body as I drank it.
Were you ill when they picked you up?
No, I didn't think I was ill.
Okay.
They said that there were the immune system had started to deteriorate, and that they needed to reinforce it.
So you see the light ahead. What happened?
I see the light ahead, and we got closer and closer to it. And as we started to curve into it, I said, "That's a hole." And they said, "Yes, that's a hole." And so we went into the hole. We landed at a city inside, and they said, "Do you know where you are?" And I said, "No. I'm presuming inside Hollow Earth." And they said, "Yes, you are."
Tell me about the city.
The city was not like a city on the surface. The cities on the surface are skyscrapers, big tall buildings and all this. And the inside, they're all the buildings are round. They don't have roofs on them, but they're round. And they're built in and around Mother Nature. They're not, you don't see any highways or sidewalks or anything like this. It's all round structures in and around nature.
With no roof.
With no roofs.
What were they made of?
It looked like a marble type substance, but yet I don't think it was marble. I think it was more like crystal.
So smooth?
It's very smooth.
Reflective?
Very reflective. Okay. And we landed, and of course I started walking around. And I met several different beings, people, and some of them announced that they were from the surface.
You mentioned the light going in.
Yes.
Did you look up once you landed?
Yes, and I saw a sun that never moved.
What color was it?
It was more between an orange and a yellow.
Could you feel the heat coming from it?
A heat, yeah, more like a soft heat. It wasn't harsh at all. It wasn't bright either. It was very easy on the eyes.
So is there any time of day on the surface that you'd say would be similar to that kind of a lighting effect?
Twilight, maybe.
Twilight?
Yeah. When the sun starts dropping down.
When you look up, can you see beyond this light and see surface on the other side?
As you look outward, you see the horizon rise like this instead of straight across. You actually see it curve upward.
Are there clouds?
No clouds.
Where does the water come from? Does it rain?
It mists from the sky, but it is not like a harsh rain like it is here. The clouds up here are very thick, and in essence, do they have? Sometimes they have a cloud once in a while in the sky, but it's more of a very like a translucent, looking through it. Very, very not dense at all. Very light. And the atmosphere was so exuberating, so refreshing and pure. It was breathing air that just had no smell or taste or anything like it does up here. Up here around cities, you breathe the air and you breathe that smog and stuff. Nothing like that there, at all. It was just the purest smell, purest energy. When you breathe it, you're just energized totally.
Okay, so you met some people.
Yes, I did.
Some were from the surface.
I met one individual. It was a female. She was rather tall, but and I looked at her, and her face looked familiar, and I told her, "You look familiar," and she said, "I should be familiar. I'm Amelia Earhart."
What year was this?
You
were 12 years old. What year was this?
I'm 12 years old. Well, let me think back here. I was brought to the surface in '51. Let's see.
63, 64?
60, yeah, between 63, 64, somewhere in that range. Anybody got a calculator?
Okay.
It's in that range there somewhere. When me and my sister were brought to the surface, we were brought to the surface not as babies, but as toddlers.
We'll come back to that story, about how that all started. Let's finish this one. You met Amelia Earhart.
Amelia Earhart. I also met a group of gentlemen that were, they were dressed in robes, but they were aviators as well. And they had, I didn't recognize them, but they were talking to me because they knew I was from the surface. they said that, I said, well, who are you? And they said, we were Navy pilots. And our aircraft disappeared off of the Bermuda Triangle.
So you met these pilots, they were lost in the Bermuda Triangle?
Yes. They were,
Do you remember their names?
their names? Sure. No, I remember their flight they were talking about, Flight 19, off of Muscle Shoals, Florida. That was Flight 19.
Do you know what year Flight 19 got lost?
It was back in 47 or 45 or 47, I'm not quite sure
So it was
exactly.
probably 1964.
Yeah.
Were they looking like some really old guys?
No, very young.
So are you saying when you go into the Hollow Earth,
You don't age.
you don't age?
There is no age. It's not like, well, see, time is an illusion. Even up here it's an illusion. But people still go by it. But it's really, down there, it's like, how do you explain it? Is everyone looks young. You know, they don't look old. You don't see people walking around with white hair and white beards. They're all very, very young looking.
Do you think you suppose it's because of the place itself, or is it because of the people?
I think it's because of a little bit of both. A little bit because of the place and because of the people. The place is indigenous to immortality or to longevity. Everything I saw down there was huge in size. I mean, even insects flying through the air were huge. They weren't small little insects. They were quite large.
So do the mosquitoes?
Dragonflies come flying by about 6 foot across. Didn't see any mosquitoes, no.
I was going to ask. Are the mosquitoes have feathers, and do they carry you away?
No, no. Mosquitoes with feathers? I don't think so, no.
Well, you know, there's that saying, the mosquitoes are so big down there that they'll carry you off. Anyhow.
No, okay. The creatures were large. The insects were large. The people were large. I looked up and I saw a flying pterodactyl. And of course, that just didn't register too well. And I said, "Wait, that's a pterodactyl." And they said, "Yes, it is." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I saw dinosaurs.
Which ones did you see?
Well, I saw the pterodactyl in the air, and I saw a T-Rex walk by. And of course, T-Rex is a vegetarian. It's not a flesh-eating animal.
Really, with all those teeth?
That's for ripping and tearing plants, not ripping and tearing flesh.
So, wouldn't they be wild? I mean, it seems kind of a dangerous situation.
Well, it's not dangerous at all. Everybody down there speaks with telepathy. That's the norm.
So what does that have to do with the dinosaurs not being dangerous?
The dinosaurs speak with telepathy as well.
So you're telling me that you can talk to the dinosaurs?
Yes, you can. You can talk to the trees, you can talk to the dinosaurs, you can talk to plants, whatever, and you get a response.
T-Rexes are kind of a big animal.
Yeah, they are.
Are there accidents? Does a T-Rex maybe accidentally kick an inhabitant or step on one, or
No, they don't step on nobody.
sit on one? Maybe I've seen people sit on Chihuahua. You never know.
Sit on a Chihuahua?
I saw somebody do it once accidentally. The Chihuahua wasn't too thrilled with that, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With something that's small in relation to something so large, it's easy not to catch.
Well, when they walk, they're very meticulous in where they walk.
Okay. Okay. Enough about the dinosaurs.
Yes.
So you saw a lot of very large things down here.
A lot of very large.
You met these pilots.
Yes.
Amelia Earhart.
Yep.
What happened next?
Then they had me go into a room, actually a building, in one of the round buildings. They had me sit down in a chair, and this mist, bluish mist, came down over me, and I said, "What's this?" And they said, "You're being detoxified, decontaminated. All the impurities that are in your body are being taken out, and so your immune system will be fortified when you return home to the surface." And I said, "Well, I don't really want to go. I want to stay here." And they said, "Yes, we know you want to stay here, but you're not staying here."
What was compelling you to want to stay there? Was it any
It just
one
felt,
thing, or-
it's the beauty of everything around you. I mean, everything is so not what it is on the surface. When you look out on the surface, what do you see? You see cars, you see planes flying over and causing, vapor trails behind them, and the sky's not clear, and the sky smells strange. You can actually taste the air here. It's just not there. All that's not there. It's all pure. Everything is pure, and everything's in harmony. I didn't hear any. I didn't hear any bad language while I was there. Nobody spoke as you would speak. It was all from communication, mind to mind. It was really, really wonderful feeling.
So in that communication, mind to mind, are you hearing a voice in your head, or is it something different?
It's more or less like a communication from their mind to my mind. You can do it on the surface too. You just have to sit down and get away from all the distractions, which is really hard on the surface because you've got all these distractions. Every come from all different directions. But if you were to get out with Mother Nature and just be quiet and turn your cell phones off and all these condiments that you like, devices, then you could communicate telepathically. But you get so caught up in the mundane world that you lose sight of it. It's just like, it's too many distractions to really communicate up here through telepathy. It's easier to talk. But talking, I think, is what got man in trouble in the first place.
So you get sprayed with this blue mist.
Yes. And then after that, they said, you're free to travel wherever you want to travel. And we'll be with you a little bit later on. We'll take you to the learning centers and re-educate you again. And so I was able to, freely walk around and talk to people and talk to beings. I saw several different type of races there. Besides the Aryanians, I saw the Lemurians. I saw the insectoids. They look like mantis almost, similar to a mantis. They don't have 6 legs, but they have 2 appendages they walk on, and then the appendages for hands, or not really hands, are like pinchers almost. And they talk with telepathy. And they're not very short, not very tall either. They're in between between 4 and 5 feet tall. And their heads look just like a praying mantis. But they're intelligent.
2 legs, 2 arms.
Yeah, 2 legs, 2 arms. And they fly, of course. They have wings. But they do communicate telepathically in English, and they know all languages. It's like when my father, sometimes when I channel my father at different times, when he is speaking to a big group of people, A lot of times there's people there that are not from America, or not from, the local area, but yet they pick up on everything he's saying and they understand it. It's sort of like he's speaking English, but yet some people that are present from another foreign country that don't speak very good English, they hear the message in their own language. So it's like and he has that ability when he talks that people from another country can still understand him.
So the telepathic communication sounds like you're hearing the words in your head
Yes.
in the English language.
Yes.
For somebody else listening to the same telepathic communication,
It would be
hear this.
in their language. So it's like when they ask, well, what language do you speak under there? All language. Plain and simple. He speaks, they understand. No matter where they're from.
So you got to the travel, you said?
Yeah, I got to travel.
How did you travel?
Well, you don't walk around that much because they like to, they don't want to harm the Mother Earth at all. They fly around on these platforms that are above the ground, and so you get up and step on one, and it radiates with your vibration, and it actually talks to you by name. Billie, where would you like to go? What city would you like to go to? And
It sounds like a taxi.
kind of like a taxi, except free.
So what are you standing on? You say it's above the ground.
It's a platform.
When you say what shape is it? Is it
It's
square?
round.
It's round.
Yeah.
It's like a frisbee, a big frisbee you stand on.
You might call it a frisbee or a saucer-shaped craft. You don't sit inside of a bubble or anything like that. You sit on this stand on this platform, and it has a ring, another ring that once you step into it, this ring appears around you, around the entire disc, and you're basically inside this enclosure. And you think the direction you want to go, you go that way.
Yeah, I would ask when you first describe it, is there a possibility of falling off the thing?
No, you cannot fall off it.
Is the ring solid? Is there like a handhold? I mean,
Well, when you step onto the platform, you have the ring that you're standing on, or the platform you're standing on, which is round, and then once you step onto it, then this other ring comes up from the main part up to about mid-waist area, and just stays right there. It keeps you on the craft, and you can't fall off it. Then you can grab.
Like a hand railing around.
It's like a handrail almost.
What holds the hand railing up? You say it comes
It just comes up from the craft and hovers right there. There's nothing, no visible means of support.
So can you pass your hand between the rail and the
Yes, you can.
underneath? If you wanted to jump from it, could you?
I imagine you could, but why would you want to?
I want to fully understand this transportation system.
Yeah.
So some people are pretty daring. Maybe they want to. There's some base jumpers out there that might want to take that.
Oh, well, it doesn't. It's not that high above the ground. If they jump out, they're going to land on the ground.
You could like bungee jump from it.
I wouldn't think so. No. Something like that. That's about 6 foot off the ground. Why would you want to bungee jump of 6 foot?
Feet, okay. Well, I'm thinking maybe you want to go 1,000, 2,000 feet in the air. That could be a thrill.
No, these are conveyances that keep you on close to the ground.
Okay, so about nature, it's close to the ground. I'm envisioning
Right.
the Jetsons. We're flying off and.
Okay, yeah, I understand. But no, they're like little platforms. And then they also have these other devices that are more of like a scout craft, which is something you get inside of. Once you're inside it, it automatically calls you by name and asks where you wish to go. If you wish to go to another star system or another planet or whatever, it can take you there.
So travel is not just within the sphere.
No,
Inside
it's
planet
not.
Earth, you can go anywhere.
Everywhere.
Oh. So these little scout craft.
Yeah.
Or they just park hither and there, and just if you need one, you can grab one.
You just get on it and go.
Are there parking areas for these little scout craft?
Well, they're all hovering above the ground.
How big are they?
The little scout craft are anywhere from about 150 feet in diameter, which is not that small. It's not that big either.
Sure.
But it's a sports craft. It looks similar to the one that Bob Lazar spoke of. But well, my father's craft is a lot larger, about 10 times as large. And it's stationed above the in the vicinity of the North Polar opening.
So, okay, we'll get to him in a minute. The question I would have about that,
Yeah.
You channeled him last night, and he just
Yes.
came from monitoring the opening. Did he monitor the opening from the craft?
Yes.
Okay. So, wow, 150 foot in diameter sport craft,
About 45 feet high.
45 feet high.
Yeah.
Do you travel in groups with these things? If you need one, it's just like one guy who can go? Is there a fueling station? You got to put gas in this thing?
It doesn't take gas.
Okay. How does it operate?
Runs off of the electromagnetism of the Earth.
Okay. So it's free energy?
Free energy.
Etheric energy?
So you could call it that, yeah.
Vortex energy?
Vortex energy. You're funny. Yeah.
Hey.
No, I won't say vortex energy, no.
Yeah, just trying to understand the terms. So it's,
Yeah.
All right. So where did you travel to during these 6 months? You can go anywhere. Where did you go?
I travel all over the inside of the planet. The different cities. And of course I went to one city of Yehu, and that looked familiar to me right away. I mean, the surroundings and everything were so familiar. And it was like I knew where to go. It was sort of like it was deja vu, if you will. Been there before. Yeah.
Okay. So had you been there before?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the rest of your experience during the 6 months in Hollow Earth, or would you like to transition into your origins?
Well, after the 6 month period was over, they approached me and they said, "It's time for you to return back to the surface." And I said, "Okay, but do I have to go?" He said, "Yes, you must return because you have a mission." And of course, that was the first time I was told about a mission. So they returned me to the surface.
Well, can you tell us what the mission was?
I didn't know at that moment.
Ah, okay.
Or at least I had no recollection of it at that time. But they brought me back to the surface. They dropped me off in the cornfield again.
The same way that you arrived, weightless?
Same way. Dropped me off in the cornfield, and I went walking on in, jumped the fence over, and started walking up to the house. This plainclothesman was standing there, and he goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "Billy." "Billy?" And I said, "Yes, Billy. I live here." I said, "Guys, call up a search. He's back." Everybody runs out to me, and they start asking me where I've been, and I'm going, "Scout meeting." My friend jumps the fence, runs over to me. He says, "That was 6 months ago." I go, "What?" He says, "6." I said, "6 months ago? No, not really. Couldn't be." He goes, "Yeah, that was 6 months ago. Where you been?" I go, "I don't know."
You couldn't remember that whole experience at the time after you came back?
My memory was wiped.
So when you were in the Hollow Earth,
Yes.
did it feel like you were there for 6 months?
It didn't feel like any time at all.
Okay.
Because there's no time.
Okay.
You really can't. I mean, a period of existence had passed, but as far as time, it's a continuous day. So how can it be time? Make sense?
Yes.
I mean, think
Yes
about
and
it.
no, I mean,
Yes and no. Well, you're inside a planet where there's no night at all. It's a continuous day. So you really can't judge a time.
do you sleep?
Rest you can, yeah, you don't have to, but a lot of people do rest, but a lot of people don't. And it's, let's see, well, a day in a life in the hollow earth, that's an experience. Well, I rested because I was used to resting, but it was just like an inbred thing. You're automatically going to, lay down and rest. And the thing in the planet, you don't have beds like you do on the surface. This thing is round. It hovers above the floor, and it's soft. So you lay on it, and it's comfortable. And you rest, and then you get up and go about what you want to do.
So getting back to meeting up with your friend that was 6 months ago, you like
right.
away because you had your mind wiped, as you said.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
Well, they started asking me all kinds of questions, and they said, sit down in the chair here, we're going to give you a shot, sodium pentothal. So...
Who was giving you this sodium pentothal?
The plainclothesmen that were at the house.
What, they were ready? They had sodium, they were carrying sodium pentothal with them?
Well, they opened up a briefcase, and they said, we would like to give you this shot that will help you to recollect where you've been.
Doesn't that seem unusual for a plainclothesman to have sodium pentothal in a briefcase?
They not just that, they also put me into hypnosis. They wanted to make sure that they were getting the full story. After I come out of the grogginess from it, they said, "Did you remember anything?" And I said, "No," because I wasn't about to tell them yes, but I had. Everything had been brought back.
The sodium pentothal caused that?
Caused it to, caused all the memory to come back, and of my trip and everything else. But I didn't say anything to them because I didn't want to be put under. I didn't want to be taken away from my home, and I knew that probably what would happen if I said yes. So I said no, and so they played it back for me, and it was interesting because when I came out of the state that I was in, I was looking at them, and then all their mouths were, just totally. What
did they play back for you?
They played back the tapes.
Audio, video?
Audio tapes,
Audio
yes.
tapes.
Audio tapes on a spool, like a recorder, reel-to-reel recorder, and they played all this back. And they said, "Do you recollect any of this?" And I said, "No." I was lying, of course. I knew everything, but it had all been brought back to me, and I just kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to be taken away from my home. But from that point on, I knew something was different, and they checked me over medically. Doctors checked me out, and they said, "We got a problem here, you guys." And what's the problem? This child has no bacteria in the body at all. None. And they said, "That's impossible." They said, "Well, it might be impossible, but that's the way it is." So, and they said, "Well," and then of course in my knapsack that I had on my back, they pulled out this container made of a metal they had never seen before. They opened it up and they asked me what it was, and I said grape juice, and they analyzed it.
Is this the drink that they gave you on the craft?
No, they had given it to me on my return voyage. And they analyzed it, and they said it was the purest grape juice they'd ever seen in anywhere. but there was no way to rate it as being grape juice. It tasted like grape juice, but it was too pure. They said, "Where did it come from?" And I said, "Wherever I went." And so they analyzed it, and they tried to analyze the container it was in, and they said, "There's no metal like this anywhere on Earth." So he definitely went somewhere, you know. So the recording is factual. The recording is real. He's not making it up. He went somewhere, obviously. They said whether it was into a planet, into a spaceship, or what, he went somewhere. We know that, but we don't know because we can't analyze this metal. And they tried cutting it; it wouldn't cut. They tried, you know, with a blowtorch, didn't even get hot.
How are you privy to these tests? You're 12 years old.
Yep.
And they're saying they can't cut it, they can't do it. How did that information come back to you?
Well, it wasn't that they came back to me. After the initial briefing, they took me and my father, adopted father, to a facility at the base.
Which base?
Shepherd Air Force Base. It's located in Wichita Falls, Texas. Of course, it's now a commercial airline place now. It's not even a military base anymore. Not an Air Force base anymore. It's now a commercial Shepherd Field or Shepherd Airport or something like that. Last I heard. But at that time, it was a military base, and they took me into this laboratory along with all the stuff they'd gotten out of my knapsack. There was even a flower in there that they couldn't recognize, an orchid. It had, they said this flower was, they'd never seen it before. They asked a plant specialist to analyze it. He says, "I've never seen one before. I can't, there's nothing to reference it to. You know, it's just not." And the funny part about the thing was that the flower was in a small pot or pottery thing. And when they analyzed it, they said, "This thing is talking. This thing is singing. You know, this plant is singing."
So it was a potted orchid.
It was a potted orchid,
And they
and it was singing.
singing.
You know,
What was it singing?
it was just singing. Nothing in particular, just like a tone or a sound. And they had machines on it, and it was making these sounds, and they were picking up on it.
Now you also said it was talking. Were they conversing with the flower?
No, it was more singing, talking, communicating on their machining machines that they had that were hooked up to it. It was like the needle was, you know, dancing, so to speak. They said it's like it's making a sound, and they were picking up on it, and they were recording the sounds. They said this plant is alive. You know. Obviously, it was alive, but
I think maybe conscious.
It has consciousness, and they just couldn't they couldn't comprehend it. But that's the way it was.
So getting back to the question about how you came into this information, just so
Yes.
I'm clear, it sounds like somehow you got brought back to this Air Force base.
Yes.
With your
Adopted father.
Your adopted father. Was your adopted father
Air Force.
So the material had to have gone from the uniformed police who had taken the recording and confiscated the container with the grape juice in it in this metal that they don't recognize.
Right.
And the whole bit. It got turned over to the Air Force.
Yes.
Who made that? I wonder who made that decision. I mean,
It was a gentleman that was sitting there. He had He wore dark rimmed glasses. He had a white mustache, white beard, or actually gray and like salt and pepper. And he announced himself as being J. Allen Hynek.
Was this the day that you'd returned?
Yes.
So it wasn't just the uniformed police, it was also this...
It was also this scientist.
Okay.
Was there.
Does he have a connection with the Air Force?
He was connected with them, yes.
Okay. So you were gone for 6 months. How do you suppose that he got involved? What's the connection? Is it because your father was in the Air Force that
Yeah.
he was brought in?
Right.
Was your father a high-ranking individual?
He was a major.
Major? Okay. What was his specialty?
He was in charge of aerial phenomenon.
Okay, so that's the connection right there.
That's the connection.
So he's already kind of programmed to think in terms of you being abducted.
Yes.
Right? So that's how that came in. So here you are, they got the same plant,
Yep.
right? You're there.
Yep.
Did you get to see the plant same connected up to all these devices?
Yes, I did.
What happened next?
Well, it's sort of like I walked over to the plant and put my hands on it, about next to it, and it stopped singing. Stopped giving this vibrational thing out to this machine. And they said, "What did you do?" And I said, "I just told her to be quiet." It's going to get in trouble. And it went silent.
How long did it stay silent? Did it start singing again?
It stayed silent for the rest of the time that I was there in the laboratory.
What was the response from the people in the lab?
They said, "What do you mean you told her to be quiet?"
Were they happy? Were they sad?
They weren't happy about it. They weren't happy about it. It was just sort of like I turned a switch off on this plant.
Well, that, and you also kind of showed your hand too.
Yeah.
What you could do.
Yeah,
Could have
a little
been the
bit.
beginning.
And I had to be real careful at what I did, but I realized I knew then that I was different, and my adopted father then realized I was different. But he was saying that why you told us that you didn't remember, but yet you told this plant to be quiet. There must be something there, you know. How can you tell a plant to be? How could you tell this plant to be quiet? How did you do that?
So this is your father talking?
Yeah, my adopted father said, "How did you do that?"
At the base, later on?
Right there in the laboratory. And I said, "I just sent a message to it." You know, he said, "Well, you didn't say anything." And I said, "No, I didn't say anything. I thought it." And it responded.
So here you are, 12 years old, you're at this base.
Yes.
So what happens next? So in your life as you move forward, what happens next?
Well, at that time, I my sister had already returned home, so that's past.
Okay, so where's home for your sister?
Hollowworth.
How did she return home?
She sent out a telepathic message that she was in danger. And I told her to send a telepathic message home.
Why was she in danger?
She had been sold to another Air Force family. Sold.
How does that work?
Well, how does that work? Well, I don't know how that works. I myself, I really don't know how that works. It was my adopted father told us that he couldn't afford to keep both of us, and that one of us had to go.
So it was both you and your sister were adopted at the same time?
At the same time.
Adopted parents?
Yes.
And your father sold your sister to another...
To another Air Force family
Not to be
that
crass,
were well off.
Not to be crass, but what, do you know what he asked? What kind of money he got for that?
$1 million.
$1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your sister sold to this other Air Force. How soon after being sold to this other Air Force family was she rescued or picked up or taken?
When she turned the age of 9, we were twins, so we were the same age.
But you were 12 when you got picked up and all this stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
But before that was when she went home.
Okay. So we're talking...
Prior to that, yes.
So after the lab experience,
Yes,
you mentioned about your sister being sold.
yes. She was 9
So
at that time.
That had already happened. Right?
That had already happened.
Yeah, so
yeah.
moving forward, so now your life is going to change.
My life changed drastically from that point on. I was, I won't go into that too much because that's a part of my life I don't want to think about. But it had to do with child abuse. So I didn't want to get into that. I won't go into that.
Okay, that's fine.
But, so, anyway, want to talk to my dad?
No, let's go back to origins.
Origins.
Well, we were talking about mission before. We wanted to get to, because you said you didn't know what your mission was.
What?
You
Right.
couldn't remember at the time.
Right.
You want to talk about what your mission is now, or you want to talk about your...
My mission, even at that time, my mission was, but of course I didn't realize it. My mission at that time was to give forth the information that Admiral Byrd was not allowed to give out when he returned to the surface back in 1947. He was told by the delegation of the Council of the Hollow Earth, given a message to give to the world. And he and when he returned back to Washington, they interviewed him with top security forces, and they ordered him to remain silent on all that he had seen and heard on behalf of humanity. And he said, this is crazy. This message is for the world. It's not just for us. And they said, well, we'll see to it that you can't. And they locked him away.
Did they?
They locked him away for a couple years. And then upon his release and being told that he will not talk about this to anyone, not even his immediate family, he was released from the military.
Now, you are a retired Air Force colonel.
Yes.
Age 12, your mission, you know what you need to do. Can you take us from age 12, what transpired, career-wise? How did you work yourself into position where you...
To be at Area 51?
Got your commission. How did you get into that whole area? How did you come to work for Area 51?
Well...
Admiral Byrd's flight logs.
Okay, well, first off, I was born both... How do I put this? You know what the term hermaphrodite is?
Yes. I
was born both female and male in one body. And my adopted father was, I'll go into a little bit, I won't go into the nitty-gritty of it, but he was a pervert, pedophile. And he would used me as a sex doll from age 6 to 10. So that's the part that I don't want to go into detail with.
Sure.
But it was his influence that got me stationed at the Pentagon after I went into the service. I graduated high school at age 12. And that was I think it was more of a fluke that I graduated, because at that time, when I was in school, back then they didn't have what they have today. They didn't have algebra. They didn't have trigonometry or physics or anything like this. It was adding, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That's it, as far as mathematics. And then you have your English and spelling and all this other stuff. So it really wasn't as complicated as it is today.
So high school was basically easy for you.
Yeah, back then,
at age 12.
at age 12, it was easy, you know, and I knew all the answers. It's like I saw these papers were put down on a desk in front of me. I had went to my adopted brother's school, and I was waiting for him to finish his class so we could go home. And he was taking his final exams, and I sat down on this desk in the back of the room. This kid walks over and drops these papers on my desk and goes on about his business. And I looked at him, and I knew all the answers, so I answered all the questions. And come to find out, I had maxed the test. So at the graduation ceremony for my adopted brother, I'm sitting in the audience along with everybody else, and my brother comes down and says, "They want to talk to you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because they want to talk to you. You should come with me."
Okay.
The educational board at the high school. So they took me back behind this curtain, and they said, "You're Billie?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Why aren't you in robes?" I said, "What?" And they said, "Why aren't you in graduation robes?" I said, "Because I'm not in high school. I'm in junior high." And he says, "No, you graduated high school." I said, "What?"
Surprise.
Surprise, surprise. So they caught a hold of my principal, which was in the audience watching his son graduate. And they got him back there, and they said, "We've got an issue here." And they said, "What's the issue?" "Well, this child is graduating high school, but he hasn't graduated junior high yet." They said, "Well, he has now." So they said, "How do you know?" And I said, "Well, he's maxed the test, valedictorian.
So
You have to give a speech."
the test that no, hang on a second. So I'm trying to understand this. It sounded to me like, and maybe I misinterpreted,
Yeah.
put a test in front of you.
Yeah.
It was a test to see if you could get a GED, basically what they would call today.
Well, at that time, it was the final exams for high school.
So but your brother gave it to you. Was it your brother's test? Was it?
No, he didn't give it to me. A kid walked up and dropped them on my desk.
A kid
That
did?
I was sitting in the back of the room,
Oh.
waiting for my brother to finish the test so we could go home.
Oh, so you were in there as the test was being given.
Yes.
And you took it as well.
I took it as well.
All right, now I understand.
And I knew the answers, so I answered all the questions. And
You graduated high school.
I graduated high school. I maxed the test. And they said, "Well, how do we know this person maxed the test?" And I said, "Well, give it to her again." So they gave me the test again. Right there behind this, put me in a desk, put the test down in front of me. I answered them again, same thing. They looked at it and they said, Does that convince you?" He says, "Yeah." So now I'm going to have to run over to the junior high school, get another certificate of graduation, so we can do this legally. So
I'm trying to follow the sequence of events here. So it sounded like you took this test. There had been some time that elapsed between the time that you took the test and the graduation.
Yes.
It sounded like you were at the graduation ceremonies.
Yes.
And they called you back there.
Yes.
At what point was the second test administered?
It was administered and when they took me back behind the curtain
You knocked it out behind the curtain during the ceremony.
during the ceremony.
This is what you're telling me.
I did it in 10 minutes.
Amazing. Okay.
So I answered all the questions in 10 minutes. It was simple. So I knocked it out. Okay, fine. So I'm up there and I had to give a speech. And the speech that I gave on was how to be harmonious. And how to live a harmonious life. And it just, it wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium after that.
But you also said you were valedictorian. You had to give this speech.
Yes,
So
but see, the thing is, I didn't have anything prepared because I was, it was just off the top of my head.
What I'm trying to wrap my head around
Yes.
is my idea of what a valedictorian is today.
Yes.
They've gone, they're 4 years of high school, 3
Yeah.
years, whatever it is. They've got all these grades. They add up the grade point average to come up with whoever's got the highest GPA. And whatever extra curricular or whatever involved
Yeah.
to determine who the valedictorian is. All you did was take a test.
I took a test.
I mean, they deemed you a valedictorian.
Yeah, because I maxed it.
Now, do you get any kind of little sticker on your diploma from high school that says valedictorian?
I'd have to find that.
Yeah. Love to see it.
I'd have to find that.
So moving on. So you graduated valedictorian, delivered your
Harmonious speech.
Yes.
And after that, I got my certificate of graduation. And a week later, I went out to look for a job.
Okay, so what was the first place you went to look in?
The first and only place I went was a Ben Franklin 5 and Dime. 5 and Dime store.
Yeah, yes,
You probably know Ben Franklin.
Not Ben Franklin 5 and Dime.
No?
Nope.
No?
5 and Dime, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is the Ben Franklin 5 and Dime. And this was in Smyrna, Tennessee. So I went ahead and went in there, and I said I'd like to apply for a job.
How old were you at that time?
12.
12. Well, weren't you in Wichita, Kansas?
Wichita Falls before that.
Okay.
And we moved from Wichita Falls to Smyrna, Tennessee.
Okay. So there was a transfer, I guess your father transferred over?
Got transferred to Seward Air Force Base, which is located in Smyrna, Tennessee.
Okay, so that explains how you're placed in Tennessee.
Yeah, he was transferred to Seward Air Force Base. So while we were there, we continued our education, and so after this graduation ceremony, I went down to get this job, and I filled out all the paperwork to become employed. I left out the part about the age, just went ahead and filled everything else in, and the manager of the 5 and Dime store, he says, oh, you didn't fill in your age here, you need to fill that in. So I reluctantly filled it in, and he looked at the age and he goes, 12? 12? You can't be 12. And I said, yeah, I'm 12. But you don't look 12. You look, adult. I said, I'm 12.
So were you tall for a 12 years old?
Yeah, 5'7".
Okay.
5'7", and very shapely at that time. As you know, like I said, I grew up as hermaphrodite, so I had the female body at that early age, but yet I was also, well, both.
Right.
My measurements at that time were 36C, 24, 36.
Okay.
And I had long hair, very long hair, down past my thighs. And right next door was a recruiting center for the armed forces. So while I was working, how I got to work for the 5 and Dime was really funny. I'm sitting there and he says, 12, you can't be 12. And I said, well, I am. Can we get verification of that? I said, yeah, call in my parents. Called in my parents and they said, yeah, she's 12 years old. High school graduate. Oh, this is the smart kid, the one that graduated high school at age 12, and it had been in the paper too, so they said, yeah. And I said, oh, okay. So they went ahead and let me go to work. And I was stocking shelves. So nothing major stuff. And one day I walked over next door to where the armed forces was, and walked in, and I said, I'd like to go in the service. See about going in the service. So the recruiter said, well, okay, we'd like to give you a test, see what you qualify for. And they didn't bother to ask my age or anything like that, because I looked the part. Sure. You know, and they said, sure, we'll give you a test, an aptitude test, and see what you qualify. I took the test, and he goes, he checked the test out, took it in the back room, had it tested, checked all the, came back out, and he says, well, young lady, you qualify for anything you want, including officer, if you want it. I said, oh, well. And so I said, well, what's my next step? And he said, well, fill out these papers. So I started filling out these papers. Got to the age part, and I filled out my age, and he was, oh, well, he was real happy about it because I made such high grades and stuff in the aptitude test. And he got to my age, and he goes, he said, is this right? And I said, yeah. And no. You can't be 12. Tell me you're not 12. I said, I'm 12. And they go, but you can't be 12. We can't take you that early. You know? And I said, well, I'm sorry, but that's my age, you know. And I got to talk to your parents. So I called my parents up, and they came down. I said, yes, she's 12 years old, high school graduate. And he goes, oh my God. So all the different services were there, and they wouldn't touch me because of my age. You know, the Army wouldn't touch me, the Marines wouldn't touch me, the Navy wouldn't touch me. The Air Force said, wait a minute, you're too intelligent to just pass you by. You know, we got to check this out. You know, we got to be a way to do this. So they contact Washington, and Washington sent a representative down, talked to me, and checked out my scores, and they said, we've got to have this person. You know? And so they said, well, would you consider going in at a later time? And make an agreement that you'll go only into the Air Force. And I said, yeah. So they said, okay, we'll wait a couple years and we'll take you then. And with the explicit permission of the parents. So that's what happened.
So how old were you when you went in?
I went in at, let me think, I was 12, and then, get my bearings right here, between 15 and 16.
Okay.
I did it again, I'm sorry.
So between 15 and 16, which is exceptional, actually.
It is very exceptional.
That's good. So what kind of job did they give you in the Air Force?
Well, see, when I was in the junior high, I was in ROTC. Okay. I went into ROTC, and I was accelerated in that as well. I got up to be in the rank of lieutenant in the ROTC. So I had that behind me, and then I went into basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. When I got there, the drill sergeant, female, she said, okay, where's this whiz kid? So they pointed at me. She said, okay, you come with me. So I went with her. She said, okay, you're going to stay in my billets, my cubicle. I don't want any problems. And because she knew I was transgender, you know, knew I was both sexes. So she goes, I said, well, what's the problem? She says, I don't want any of these girls coming up pregnant. Because they knew, you know, she knew I was.
Sure. Oh, gotcha. All right.
That had the penis.
Right.
And so I said, okay, fine. You know, I'll stay in your cubicle. And we did for the first 4 weeks of training. After that, the girls were wondering why I was not being with them, you know, sleeping in the same barracks and all that with them. And they questioned the drill sergeant. And they said, because this person is different. This person is transgender, hermaphrodite. And they said, we don't got no problem with that, you know. And they said, as long as there's no problems, fine. I don't want nobody coming up pregnant, you know. And so I said, well, it's not going to happen, you know. So the last 4 weeks of training, I was with the girls, just one of the girls. At the end of graduation, at the graduation, I was sent to OTS, which is Officers Training Candidate School Air Force.
You have OCS in
OCS is Army.
Yes, so
OTS is the Air Force. So I went into OTS. Strange that I didn't have 4 years of college, you know, to go into it. Okay, but yet I'm still advanced, way
it's
advanced.
It's not required though. You don't need to have that college degree to go into, at least in the Army, the OCS.
OTS either, but you have to have some schooling, you know, some college, but not in this case, because of my high grades on the aptitude tests that I had taken. I had qualified for everything, including officer.
Okay, so you went through the basic, and then you went to OTS.
Yes.
Which was like 90 days typically?
No, it was more than that. More like 8 weeks.
8 weeks, okay.
Yeah, 8 weeks of training.
Okay.
So I think OCS is 8 weeks too, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
I thought it was like 90 days. We had this phrase
No.
called 90-day wonders, they would call them.
Oh yeah, 90-day one. Nowadays it's 90-day wonders. Back then it was a lot longer than that. It was like 8 weeks.
Yeah, sure. They've got the ROTC in college these days. You'll go. That's 4 years.
Yeah.
You get a degree when you're done. And you
Right.
get a mission.
Right. So at the end of my training, of course the drill sergeants that are in there too had to salute you at the end because you're an officer.
Sure. But getting back to the 90 days, that's 3 months. You mentioned 8 weeks. That's 2 months.
8 weeks? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It is. Well, that's 2 months. But back then, but like I said, it was different than what it is now.
Okay.
So we went ahead and went through this training, and they said, "Do you know where you're going?" "I'm going to Hawaii." I signed up for it. You know, I got a guarantee letter saying I'm going to Hawaii.
Watch the mic.
Right. Guaranteed letter, I'm going to go to Hawaii. "No, you're going to the Pentagon." I said, "I don't want to go to the Pentagon. I want to go to Hawaii." And they said, "Well, that's where they're going to send you. That's where they want you. That's where you're going." I said, "Oh, wonderful." So I end up in Washington.
Now, are you cognizant of your mission at this time?
Huh?
Are you aware of what your mission is?
In the back of my mind, yes,
Yeah,
but not.
conscious kind of.
Well, I didn't feel it was right to go on it yet.
Mm-hmm.
In the back of my mind, I was going, wait a minute, it's not the right time. Not the right time for it. At that time, I knew that the world wasn't ready for that information. So I went ahead and went into the Pentagon, got to the Pentagon, and as soon as I got into the Pentagon, they handed my a second lieutenant bars. That's the gold ones. And then, so at that point,